Alrighty, so now I'm going to watch a video and I'm going to react to the video in real time and kind of break down my disagreements, call it out if it is absurd. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is going to be pretty absurd. This is what I got for you today. PragerU, we're going there. We're going there. Why God is a he. I mean, this is like self-parody, isn't it? I mean, like, this is absurd. I mean, you don't have better things to do. You don't have better things to talk about. So I'm just gonna play it. I'm gonna try to pause as little as possible and really let it make its points. But let's just get started.
One of the criticisms many people make against the Bible is that it depicts God in male terms. The most obvious example is God is referred to as he. Why did the Bible do this? Well, here's the answer.
So to start out, God most likely isn't real. There's little, if any, evidence of it. But if we're just talking about the story of the Bible and just putting aside whether or not you believe in it or not, God is depicted as male in the Bible because the people who wrote the Bible were most likely male. That seems like the most, doesn't that seem like the most cogent, realistic explanation? I mean, I think that's the most realistic explanation, but let's see what he has to say.
Because the Bible is preoccupied with making a kinder, less violent, more just world. If you...
Citation needed. Not necessarily. Like, there are some pretty violent aspects of the Bible. There are some pretty heinous things that the Bible prescribes and talks about. I mean, maybe at the time that was their intention, but doesn't always come off that way, bro.
You share these goals, and I suspect you do, then you'll have to agree the Bible made the right decision. Before I explain, however, I need to add an obvious caveat. The God of the Bible is neither male nor female. God transcends gender. What I'm talking about here is why God is depicted in male terms in the Bible.
Okay.
Gender-wise, the Bible had three choices: masculine, he; feminine, she; or neuter, it. We can readily rule out neuter. For one thing, neuter nouns don't exist in Hebrew, the language of the Old Testament,
that makes perfect sense.
First introduced this God to us. For another, the biblical God is a personal God to whom we can and must relate, and we cannot relate to, let alone obey or love, an it. Aside from the language issue...
Why? Why can't you necessarily relate to an it? I mean, why? It doesn't give any reason or explanation as to why. It's just assumed, you know, we can't relate to an it. Can't relate to someone who's not male or female. Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know.
The Bible depicts God in masculine terms because, one, the Hebrew Bible's primary concern is making a good world. Two, a good world can only be achieved by making good people. And three, the people who commit nearly all the world's violence are males.
So these three things, well, the first two things I don't think are true, but let's grant them that the intention of the people writing it was to make a good world and to make good people. I don't think that's the case. I think the intention behind it was to control people and basically social engineering. That's what I think. But if we just grant him those two, the people who commit nearly all the world's violence are males. That thing is true, right? I mean, at the time it was true. Today it's true, okay? So this is what PragerU often does, is they'll use a nugget of truth and then they will extrapolate as far as they possibly can for their own political gains. And this is what I talk about dishonest actors. If you go through this channel, you'll get a pretty clear consensus of what they think, and they often use misleading data in order to further their claims. Now, I predict that through this video, you're going to see some very misleading uses of data. So let's just see if that happens.
Therefore, it is in both men's and women's interests to depict God in the masculine. Here's why. Without a father or some other male rule giver, young men are likely to do great harm.
Here we go. This is an obsession with the right, and some other people, but fathers. This world it's going to hell because no one has fathers. No one has a family. And like there are statistics about that, but it's not necessarily the father that is the operative thing. It is having an influence around to teach you the difference between good and bad, to teach you how to manage your money, to teach you how to, learn things and stay in school and yada, 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 not do drugs at a young age. So a role model, yes, but why is it always the fathers that is so important, especially when talking about, raising a boy, but they also talk about raising a girl, and they will probably do that later on in this clip. But let's just let it play. But I suspect they're going to hinge most of their argument on this point pretty substantially.
If there is no male authority figure to give a growing boy rules, it is very difficult for him to control his wilder impulses. As President Barack Obama told an audience in 2008, children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison.
So they did exactly what I told you they were going to do. Okay. If we grant them those studies, and it probably is true, right? If we grant them those, did the study look specifically at a father being missing from the family? Or was it just, how many of these families also had a mother? How many of these families had, for instance, 2 mothers? Or had a mother and an uncle that wasn't their father but was there for them? How many, there are so many variables that are left out of this that it's just misleading. You could do another study where they have a father, but they're missing their mother, and maybe they'll end up in the same boat. They'll have the same crime statistics. I don't know if that's the case, but you can't just give that data alone and say, oh, that supports my claim. Without fathers, you don't know how to be a good man. That's just highly misleading. There's so many things I can think of that they did not address there that could explain this without inherently the father being the specific role that needs to be available in order to keep kids out of crime, out of violence, etc. So already using misleading data, but that was genius right there, taking quotes from Barack Obama. Oh, you think this is a right-wing channel? Well, I'm quoting Barack Obama. Gotcha. As if Obama is some firebrand progressive.
Commenting on that speech, Dr. Alvin Poussant, a psychiatrist with Harvard Medical School, confirmed these statistics. The absence of fathers corresponds with a host of social ills, including dropping out of school and serving time in jail.
Now, again, right? Absence of fathers corresponds with a host of social ills, including blah, 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 blah. Now, we don't know, and they're not providing any information as to whether having a father, but having an absent mother would do the same thing, okay? So let's continue.
In jail. In other words, if one's primary goal is a good world, specifically a world with far less murder, child abuse, theft, and rape, a God depicted in masculine terms, a father in heaven, not a goddess, a mother in heaven, must be the source of moral commands such as do not murder and do not steal.
Whoa. Sweeping assumptions there, dude. Now, first of all, you haven't even convinced me, and I've never been convinced that a God at all should be the source of one's morals, should be the source of one's, how they live their life. So already, you're jumping several rungs over on the logic tree just to get to, and that person also needs to be a man, so it can be a father figure to all the human beings, all the human boys, because men, also another thing, they're assuming that men are just inherently more violent, and yeah, okay, there's probably good data for that, and the statistics show that men do commit most of the violent acts in the world, but I thought these are the people that are against identity politics. Yet they're talking about, all men need to be, they have unbridled rage and they're fucking violent all the time and they need a father figure in order to keep that under locks. They're playing the identity game, but from a different perspective. You see what I'm saying? I don't know. I could say more about this. Let's just continue.
If the father figure / rule giver that boys need is not on earth, a morally authoritative masculine God can serve as an effective substitute. Any discomfort you might feel with the masculine depiction of God is not comparable to the pain we will all feel if boys are not civilized into good men. To transform a wild boy into a good man, a male role model is as necessary as a male rule giver. So when the Bible depicts God as merciful, compassionate, and caring for the poor and the widow, it is not so much.
It sometimes depicts him as those things. Sometimes. Other times, it depicts him as vindictive, evil, kind of a douchebag, if you ask me. He commits genocide. Are men supposed to take away those lessons that, if you don't like a particular population because they're engaging in certain acts, you genocide them? I mean, we could, dude, okay, if we follow your line of reasoning, we could take this in a million directions. Are men supposed to take away that sometimes in certain situations slavery is okay? There are so many things in the Bible that you would not want to ascribe to men. You would not want men taking the lead on, if you will.
Much interested in describing God as in providing a model for humans, especially males, to emulate.
See, exactly. You do not want to model your behavior after God, not the God of the Bible. No, sir, you do not. Okay, let me stop interrupting him. Let's see what he says towards the end.
If God were depicted as female, young men would deem traits such as compassion, mercy, and care for the downtrodden as feminine and would not identify with them.
Not necessarily.
But if God, their Father in heaven, who is strong, on occasion even a warrior, cares for the poor and loves justice, mercy, and kindness, then these traits are also masculine and to be emulated.
How merciful is genocide? How merciful is flooding the whole planet because you don't like, your creation's behavior in some cases? How merciful is giving someone the option to fall from grace in the form of an apple and then saying, "Oh, you took it. Gotcha." This is not a particularly merciful dude. This is not a particularly, I would not say a particularly compassionate, just dude, kind dude. I mean, yeah, sometimes you could cherry pick moments in the Bible, but again, there are so many things you do not want men taking away from this guy. All right? And I could just as easily make the argument that, well, if you made it a female, and the female is being as much of a dick as he is in the Bible, genociding people, doing all this shit, then men will take away, females are like that, and therefore I shouldn't be like that. I could make silly, stupid arguments like that in the other direction.
And the argument that girls equally need female role models to avoid violence is objectively not true, because the problem of mayhem and violence is overwhelmingly a male one. Of course, girls need female role models, but not to avoid violence. And, like boys, girls are more likely to obey a male authority figure. A report released by the Minnesota Psychological Association concluded, in a study of female inmates, more than half came from a father-absent home.
Another statistic that is just totally irrelevant. It has so many holes to it that could indicate it will not necessarily make your argument, right? In a study of female inmates, more than half came from a father-absent home. How many of them came from also a mother-absent home? If you take females that came from a mother-absent home, are they going to show the same results, etc.? What if they have another male role model in their house that isn't a father? What if they have two female role models? What if they have two male role models? There are so many things that go into this that it is absurd to use data in this way. Absolutely absurd. That does not make your point.
Morality less masculine, because if their goal is achieved, it is women who will suffer most from lawless males. We have too many absent fathers on earth to begin to even.
Again, which is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but PragerU has probably done videos on feminism, has probably done videos on, talking about how identity politics is horrible, and now you're saying that men are just prone to raping women, and if men are not controlled, then women are the primary people who would be negatively affected by this. But then other times, I bet you'll probably say that you don't have to worry about men raping women. That's just a misconception, and feminists are too quickly jumping at the gun. And I mean, but you're making all these sweeping assumptions about what men do and how men act. And again, in the crime statistics, yeah, they commit the overwhelming majority of the crimes. But, dude, keep your identity politics at the door, am I right?
Entertain the thought of having no father in heaven. I'm Dennis Prager. Thank you for watching.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So that was just a segment. Honestly, I know. Maybe I shouldn't do PragerU because it's just raw propaganda. I don't know how many people take this shit seriously. Apparently, a good amount. I mean, look at this like to dislike ratio. It's absurd, dude. And if you go to their channel, it's much the same thing. You'll see a consistent ideological swing on PragerU, and they consistently use misleading data or data in misleading ways. Wildly misleading ways. I don't know. Leave your comment below. Should I address people like this? Or if you have someone else or a particular video that you would like me to address, you would like me to watch in real time and just kind of debunk as it goes, please leave it in a comment below. Also, I would really appreciate it if, we're fighting the YouTube algorithms pretty hard on this channel. So if you could give us a like, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Apparently that's a thing now. I hate that. I hate that bell system. It should just be, oh, I click subscribe. I want to subscribe to them. But, that's just how it is these days. So please give us a like, hit the bell. Leave me a comment as to what you would like me to address in a video in the future, because I'm going to be doing a lot of these segments. I find, YouTube is like, it's like the oracle of stupid shit, and cool shit. I mean, if you're going to get your politics or religion or philosophical arguments in the form of an infotainment style like this, at least get it from someone who is at least honest with you, all right? Who is not just blindly trying to paint a narrative and is clearly very ideologically consistent in painting a narrative, regardless of whether the facts and figures that they're giving are accurate or even relevant to the point that they're giving. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.